It's February. There's snow on the ground. It's cold. So let's talk baseball. Huh? Let's gather around the hot stove a little bit with Greg Brown. And Greg, good morning.
Good morning, Todd. How are you?
I'm wonderful, and it's good to hear your voice again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. Thank you. It goes quick, doesn't it? The off season was such a weird year that we had last year. I think we're all kind of anxious to try and get back to some set of normalcy, and the closest we've come in a long time to normal is the fact that there are going to be some fans in the stands down in Bradenton, which is going to be a sight for sore eyes for sure.
You betcha. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. And Greg, we'll be talking about the Pirates in spring training soon and hooking up with you and the rest of the crew. We can't wait for that to happen. I'm not going to ask you to comment on Bly Madras' home run last night in the Australian Baseball League, but he really cranked one.
You know more about that than I do, Todd.
He turned on one, Greg. He really turned on it.
I'll take your word for it.
I watched it. He really crushed it. Hey,
that's cool.
I did want to talk to you, Greg, though, about, we've lost so many baseball names in the last 6 months or so, none bigger, of course, than Henry Aaron, but you have had the opportunity to talk to so many of these people down through the years, and we're going to miss these guys so much. And within the Pirates family, we lost Grant Jackson this week. We lost Tommy Sandt a little bit earlier this month. Those are tremendous losses from an organizational standpoint, but from a community standpoint too, aren't they?
Yeah, and personally, and not just me, Todd. I mean, you've had the chance to run into a lot of these guys over the years. Fans have had the chance to interact with many of these names that you mentioned, and the most recent one the other day, Grant Jackson. It's a tremendous loss. It's a loss that we a tie to the past. Some who have passed are in the Pirates' case ties to some glory years.
Mm-hmm.
Grant Jackson was the last winning pitcher in a World Series game by a Pittsburgh Pirate. He was a Pittsburgher. He stayed in Pittsburgh. He made his home in Pittsburgh. I was asked by one of our affiliates locally to kind of give a quote, and one of the first things I thought of that, I saw Grant a lot because he was part of the alumni group that Joe Bilodeau from the Pirates organization runs. And I don't think that Grant ever turned down an opportunity to do some fundraiser or community relations or alumni event. So I saw him a bunch at various autograph sessions, public appearances or whatnot, and always with that patented smile, ear to ear, and always showing off that World Series ring. I think he won 3 World Series, or he went to 3 World Series. I don't know if he won 3. He was with a bunch of teams before he came to Pittsburgh, including the Yankees, the Orioles, Phillies, and but he was most proud of wearing the black and gold and showing off that 1979 World Series ring.
Oh, yeah, and that smile, you're right. Even as a player, I remember that he was such a jokester, but he just was a pleasant guy. And there was another, Tommy Sandt was another guy that always had a smile on his face and that impish little glint in his eye, too, didn't he?
Yeah, and his patented Yosemite Sam mustache.
Yeah.
The big, bushy stash that he, I think, became kind of his persona. Now, he, I knew Grant. I considered Grant a friend. Tommy was a really close friend of mine. Tommy was a guy who was comfortable sitting in first class with the manager and the coaches on a road trip, but he preferred to be in the back of the bus with the dregs of society, the broadcasters. He just loved being in the back of the bus with us and sharing a beverage or two on the way to the airport to a city, and arguing and debating baseball. He loved to talk baseball. He loved the Pirates, and he became a real good friend of mine. I was really awestruck at first of all, his knowledge, because he played in the major leagues. He was a long-time manager in the minors, very successful one at that. He managed guys like Bob Walk and in the minor leagues, and just knew so much about the intricacies of the game, the little things, the nuances, and the fact that this guy, in my mind, with a track record, that he would be willing to come back and sit with me. And I can understand being with the former players like a Steve Blass or a Bob Walk, but why is he sitting back here with me? And I just got to know he's so down to earth. And when he was let go by the Pirates, he returned to his roots out in the Portland, Oregon area. But he would always stay in touch. He'd leave, there would be a text or a voicemail throughout the summer about something stupid I said on TV. He'd be watching at a bar out in Portland, and he said, "I'm sitting here with some buddies." And in fact, one time he texted me during a game. He said, "I'm sitting here with some buddies in Portland watching the game at a bar. They don't believe that you and I are good friends. And say something." So here I am on television, and I said something like, "My good buddy Tommy Sandt is," and I even got the name of the bar. And I said, "Hope they're enjoying watching the game in Portland, Oregon." And I guess the guys went crazy. They couldn't believe it. Anyhow, it was a really tough loss because I saw Tommy just a year and a half ago, and that one hurt.
Yeah, it sure did. And then all across baseball, the Hall of Famers, that was an indication of the way the year was. MLB Network was airing the show about all of the Hall of Famers we lost in 2020. And in the middle of the show, they had to break in and say Phil Niekro died. It was just amazing, the number of people that went. And so many of them became broadcasters. So I assume that you had the chance to pass the time and swap stories with guys like Don Sutton and Joe Morgan, guys who ended up in the broadcast booth and were there for many, many years and were really, really good at that craft as well as being ball players.
Yeah, I would cross paths with Joe Morgan on occasion when ESPN came in. Don Sutton, I'd see him twice a year, and always classy. He and Steve, I think in particular, were pretty close. Steve Blass, because he pitched at just the end of Steve's career. Sutton's kind of began. And he also crossed paths to a degree with Bob Walk, whose career was just kind of beginning, as his was toward the finish line. But just a classy guy, Sutton, and as was Morgan. All these guys. I mean, Phil Niekro, Todd, one of my favorite broadcast moments now going on in terms of the Pirates, going on about 27 years, 28 maybe, was not 2020, of course, but 2019. We were in Atlanta. First of all, Phil Niekro was a guy I know who Bob Walk over his career liked and disliked. Most of the players he played with or against, Bob never has a ill word to say about anybody, but there are some that he really respected, and I can name them. Maybe there's two or three. Pete Rose is one. Steve Carlton another. Phil Niekro was one. Whenever he spoke and gave me some Phil Niekro stories off the air, such reverence and respect. So I knew how much Bob respected Phil Niekro as an ex-teammate in Atlanta. Well, we were in Atlanta, again, this is 2 years ago now, and I'm on television with Bob, and we are in a commercial break about the fourth inning, and someone taps me on my left shoulder. Now, Bob, the analyst, works up against the wall in Atlanta, so the wall is on his right. I'm to Bob's left as we stare at the field. And then you have some stage managers behind us, cameramen, and so on. It's not a huge booth. Anyway, I get a tap on the shoulder. I assume it's my stage manager telling me about a promo. I look up, and it's Phil Niekro standing there. And I take my headset off. Now, Bob doesn't see this yet. I take my headset off, and I stand in reverence, and I say, "Phil, Greg Brown," and introduce myself. And he's very almost shy, sheepish, in that he knows that we're coming back. He doesn't want to impose. he says, I just wanted to say hi to Bob. And I tap Bob on the shoulder, who's looking at some notes, and he looks up and he sees Niekro. I mean, his jaw dropped. He hadn't seen Phil in a long time. Oh. Anyway, long story, I ended up asking Phil, I said, could we bother you for a half an inning? He said, of course. So we pull up a chair, and he sits between Bob and me. And we asked him for the half inning, but the half inning went by so quickly. I said, could you do another half inning? Sure. He didn't want to stay too much longer because he felt like he was imposing on us. But that was like an inning just of sitting back and watching these two. Here is the kind of the old school, the mentor of Bob's, Phil Niekro, swapping stories with Bob about their old Atlanta Brave days. Yeah. And it was so neat. So I know it touched Bob maybe more than anybody when Nuxie passed away.
I'll tell you what, for Braves, when they finally do get fans in and the tributes pour in, Hank Aaron and Phil Niekro within weeks of each other.
And Sutton.
And Sutton as well, yeah.
Sutton, the broadcaster, I mean, my gosh, incredible.
And, well, Bob probably threw to Biff Pocoroba. Biff Pocoroba passed away in 2020 as well. So
You're exactly right.
That organization hard hit. But baseball as a whole was hard hit by the loss of so many of these guys. I'm sure that you had at least one or two opportunities down through the years to talk to Tommy Lasorda, and or even to just sit and listen to Tommy Lasorda talk. That must have been so much fun.
Well, I don't know how much time you have. You probably have less than 5 minutes, so I'll try and make this brief. I've had two interactions with Tommy Lasorda. One was when he was retired, and he was in the press box at Dodger Stadium, and I went into the men's room between innings, and he was standing at one urinal, and there were only two urinals there, and I went to the other. And he talked about there were two things in life that felt as good as being able to go to the restroom as we did. And so as he's relieving himself, and he's kind of very vocal about it and how badly he had to go, and he said, man, there's only one other thing better than this. And so it was kind of comical, but he didn't recall the first meeting I had with him. It had been about maybe 15 years earlier. I was in the front office of I just started my broadcasting career. It was about 1994, 95 at Three River Stadium. And a friend of mine had a granddaughter who was a huge Dodger fan for whatever reason, lived in Pittsburgh. They were going to a game when the Dodgers were in town. He asked me if I could maybe get an autograph or two. His 10-year-old granddaughter had a handicap, and so it was to a degree, I don't know what it was. It might have been Down syndrome. I apologize for not knowing exactly, but at any rate, I said sure. I said get her down to the railing during Dodger batting practice, and I'll do what I can. So I go over to the batting cage, and there's Lasorda. He's up on the riser with his arms draped over the cage, talking to each player as they come in and encouraging each. And I said, Tommy, I hate to bother you, to introduce myself. He never looks at me, not once. I stand there, I wait, I'm thinking, I better get out of here. He's getting angry. Still doesn't. I'm standing there, and he finally says, what do you want? And I told him the situation. I said, there's blah, 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 blah. Still nothing. A couple minutes later, he says, where is she? Again, never looks once at me. I said, she's third base side. She's wearing Dodger blue, decked out, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, he leaps from this riser, and he doesn't see me, doesn't look at me. He starts marching toward the third base box seats. And I'm following in a hurry, and he's talking to me. He's going, now tell me again, what's her name? I said, Kara. And he keeps walking. I'm following him, and he says, what's she wearing? I said, blue Dodger cap, blue Dodger T-shirt, and there were a bunch of fans, maybe 50 of them, waiting for autographs and so on. All of a sudden, he turns, and he spots this little girl, and he says, Kara! And her eyes light up. She brights up with this big smile. He says, do you bleed Dodger blue? She says, yes. He says, can I get a picture with you? Yes. He goes, he grabs her. He takes her over the railing. Her mother takes a picture. He says, do you love the Dodgers? Yes. Puts her back in her seat, turns around, marches right back to the batting cage as I'm following, never once looks at me. And I say, Tommy, thank you so much. He goes, she'll never forget it. He goes right back up on the riser to continue his batting. No interaction with him whatsoever. Todd, that was the epitome of someone who knows how to be an ambassador. And, and many people suggest that is kind of fake, phony. Regardless, that girl would be a Dodger fan for the rest of her life, of course.
Yeah, you bet. Greg, this has been so much fun, and we could go on, you're right, for hours and hours. But we got to get to Fox News coming up. Mark Burdig says to remind you, you still owe him dinner at Knapp's Cucina Mia, and he's holding you to it.
He's on. I know I do. He won't let me forget it. I know that.
Greg, thanks so much. Have a wonderful day today.
You too, Todd. Thank you.
Right, bye now.
Bye-bye.
There's Greg Brown of the Pittsburgh Pirates. There's Greg Brown of the Pittsburgh Pirates. There's Greg Brown.